Hello, it's Belinda. I'm here today to share my title page and my introduction page to my 2019 December daily album. I have decided that I am going to work on this album in December, but I'm going to work on the pages in small batches, just so that it's not something that's constantly out on my desk. So I do anticipate filming my process and having some videos up at least once a week, but we'll see how we go. I know December can get very, very busy. Just a couple of disclaimers today before I start. I'm shooting with a different camera today, so I hope that there's not going to be any technical issues, but we'll see how that goes. And the second disclaimer is that this isn't actually my first title page and cover page. I had worked on this is what I had worked on a couple of days ago for my title page and this for my introduction page, and I just wasn't happy with them. They look okay. I'm sure many people will look at these and think, oh wow, they look fantastic, and they do. They look okay, but it's not what I had envisaged. I'm a little bit rusty with my scrapbooking because I haven't done very much over the last few months, so I guess it's to be expected that things aren't really going to go as I had planned, and that's okay. But I've put those together. I didn't like them. I've thought about what it was that I didn't like, and I've now started again. And so I'm going to film my process of me putting these title pages together. So I've stuck with this December cut file, which is in that glitter paper, and I'm going to back it with some white polka dot paper. And then I've got the foundation here for my title page. I can see already that my Silhouette Cameo, my brand new Silhouette Cameo 4, is going to get quite a workout in this year's December daily, and I'm really happy with that because I want to make sure that I get good use out of it. So anyway, I will pop you on fast forward and let you watch my process for putting these pages together. Okay, so here I've got my cut files ready to glue them together, or to glue the backing to the cut file. I had cut out 2 copies of this backing for the December word one, was just slightly too small, so I was just checking to see which was the one that I needed to use. If you have watched any of my previous YouTube videos, you'll know that my search for the perfect adhesive has been ongoing, and I think I may have finally found it. So this is something that I've seen a lot of other YouTubers use. It's called Art Glitter Glue, and it comes with a really fine tip, and it's just perfect. The adhesive is really nice, the fine tip is really nice, and so far I'm loving it. So I did cut out a bit of that, just going around the edge of that cut file with that adhesive, the liquid adhesive, and then sticking the backing onto it. That backing is just like a white polka dot embossed paper, which is a really nice effect, which you can see up close. For some, when I did cut the backing of it out, I did use my Silhouette to cut the backing out rather than trying to cut it out by hand, and it left the inside of that D in. So off camera, I am going to take my little craft knife and my scissors and cut the inside of that D out. And that's just because it was all in one piece, and when I did the releasing the compound path, I couldn't get the inside of that D, which I didn't actually realize until I had the completed, or the finished cut file in my hands. I did get the inside of the B and the R though, so I'm just gluing those little bits down now. It's quite fiddly. And I really love the glitter paper. It just gives it a nice, it's just a really nice finish, and I really like that. And once it's in my album and finished, I'm really happy with the way it looks. So this is the joy word that's going at the top of my intro page. I guess you could call it an intentions page. I tend to not call it an intentions or a reason why anymore. I did, I think, the first couple of years, but now it's a little bit simpler. So I'm calling this my intro page, and it is all about joy. And so I did cut this out on my Silhouette, just using a font that I have on my computer. And I cut it out with the glitter paper, and then I cut out another copy with just some plain white cardstock, just to give it a little bit of dimension on the page, but not too much, because I'm trying not to add too much dimension to my album this year. I don't want it to end up like the monster that my 2018 album did. So that's all finished. I've chosen some paper to go behind that cut file. It's from the Die Cuts with a View paper pad that I featured in my supplier video. and it's a pink background with just some little white foliage, and I think it's got some red or like a muted gold berries through it. I also cut out this little tag from some plain white cardstock, and then I used some red number stickers to stick the number or the year 2019 down. And I've decided that I'm going to hang that tag off the bottom of the December cut file. So I'm just checking to see where it goes before I've got some foam dots. They're really, they're not very deep foam dots. So I'm going to be using those just to lift that cut file off the page a little bit. So I've gone and put all the foam dots on the back of that cut file now. And what you also can't see is I've also taken my sewing machine and I've just run a line of stitching around the outside of that page. I'm probably going to try and incorporate a fair bit of stitching into my album just because I really love the way that it looks. I love the extra texture that it adds, and for me it suits my aesthetic. So I probably am going to use a lot of machine stitching and maybe some hand stitching in my album this year. That tag wasn't really popping out enough, so I've just gone through my little stash of pens to find a grey pen. I didn't want something that was too dark, so I've got this nice light grey, and I'm just using that to run around the outside of the tag just to help it pop out of the page, or pop off the page a little bit more. And then I've got just some red and white baker's twine, which I'm going to use to tie it onto the bottom of that cut file. Now it is going to take me a lot of fussing around to get this tag right, in particular the bow. I'm not very good at tying bows. I'm sure there's a trick to it. I've seen so many beautiful, perfect looking bows out there. I just can't seem to make them happen. And the problem that I had with this baker's twine is that because it's two pieces of twine twisted together, when I was pulling that bow through, it was kind of twisting back on itself. So every time I pulled the bow through to tighten it up, it was twisting back on itself, and I was losing the nice loop on the bow. So if you have any hints or tips on how to create a really nice looking bow, I'd love for you to share them with me in the comments. Yeah, it's just something, I love the look of a nice bow, but I really struggle to make it happen myself. So I finally get there, and then I decide just to have that sitting properly on the cut file. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, a little dot of glue, and then I'm going to use my finger to just hold the knot of that bow down just so it sits nicely over the top of that December cut file. Wasn't sure if I wanted to leave the string hanging down quite long or if I wanted to cut it off, and in the end I decided to just cut it off just to keep it a little bit cleaner. And that's it. That's my title page all done. So now I'm moving on to my introduction page. As I said, this is all about joy. So my journaling here, what I did was I went into the dictionary and I looked up the definition of joy, and I've included that in like a light pinky red coloured text, just the various definitions of joy. And then underneath it, I've added my own journaling, which is just about the fact that I'm approaching this Christmas season this December with really just one intention, and that is to find joy, to experience joy, and to share joy with the people that I love. Joy is probably something that's been in short supply in my overly stressed life over the last couple of years, so I really want to try and change that, because it's such a nice feeling. So I've adhered that down with some liquid adhesive onto the top. When I printed out my journaling from Photoshop, I included the what is it called? The side markings. So I just cut it down to 6 inches because I wasn't quite sure where I wanted the 8-inch, the length of the paper to go. So I've trimmed down the sides so that the card is 6 inches, and I'm going to back it on this pink and red candy stripe paper, but I didn't want to use the whole piece of paper and
have it, most of it not be seen. So I'm just cutting out, it's about a 4x6 in the middle. It's not quite 4x6, but I am just cutting out the middle of that 6x8 paper so that I can at least salvage some of it. And now I'm going to go and trim down that journaling. I don't know what I did. I thought I had figured out the right dimensions to cut the page down to, but then when I stuck it onto that backing paper, I'd messed it up. I was about 1/2 inch off. So you'll see when I first try and stick it down onto the backing paper, it's not quite right. The dimensions on it are not quite right. So in the end, what I end up with is a border of about, I think about 1/2 inch, maybe a little more, probably a little bit more. So you can see on the sides there, I've got more space on the sides than I did on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to take that away, trim a little bit more off, and then try again.
Mama.
It is quite early in the morning here, and my daughter has just woken up and joined me in my study as I'm recording this voiceover. So I've got that page cut down, the journaling page cut down to the right size now. I'm going to add a little bit of tape runner to the inside of that frame and use that to adhere the journaling down. And then I take it away to my sewing machine and add some stitching around the edge of the journaling. And then, because there was quite a big gap, I have just put some washi tape to hold that down. I just didn't want it to catch on anything and tear while I was in the album. So to finish off this page, I've just grabbed some really tiny gold star sequins, and I'm going to scatter those around the page and use some liquid adhesive to adhere those down. That is it for my title page and my introduction page to my 2019 album. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process. I do have some close-up photos to share at the end of the video, and I do hope that you stick around to see the rest of what I will be sharing for my 2019 December daily album. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.